One day, there was an ancient prophecy that told of a young man from the east who would cross the seas. He was unaware of his own power, a power that could both destroy him and realize his dreams. The prophecy also spoke of a battle between a dragon that brought darkness and a phoenix that brought the purple wind, and in the midst of that darkness, a morning star would shine brightly. This long story was said to be beginning soon. In November 1986, in Yokosuka, Japan, a young karateka named Ryo Hazuki was preparing to compete in the Kanagawa Prefectural High School Karate Tournament. He was cheered on by his friends and family. Meanwhile, in a peaceful village, a girl was seen feeding a baby goat. The scene shows the karate tournament in progress. Ryo is a highly talented fighter and wins the tournament easily, needing only a single blow to defeat the reigning champion. On his way home, Ryo sees a commotion between local gangsters and a woman he knows. He immediately teaches the gangsters a lesson so they wouldn't act so arrogantly. Ryo's peaceful life was shattered when one day he returned home to find his family's dojo under attack. A mysterious man named Landy and his underlings were torturing Ryo's father, Iwao Hazuki, to get a mysterious mirror. To save Ryo's life, Iwao was forced to reveal the mirror's location. Before leaving, Landy revealed that Iwao had killed someone named Sunming Zhao. Iwao died from his injuries, leaving Ryo in grief and confusion. The next day, the police investigated the murder, but Ryo was dissatisfied. His family's friends warned him that hunting for his father's killer was too dangerous. Initially, Ryo tried to move on with his life, but the memory of his father's advice about strength and understanding continued to haunt him. The next day, Nozomi asked Ryo to go get their favorite hot dogs. While Nozomi was talking to a hot dog vendor whose card had been damaged by a black luxury car, suspected to be connected to Landy. Hearing the description, Ryo remembered the man who had taken his father's life. Ryo then suggested Nozomi get ramen instead. While ordering ramen, Nozomi noticed Ryo seemed deep in thought. When asked, Ryo only said he was curious about someone named Landy. A man in the restaurant who accidentally overheard their conversation then told them that the name Landy sounded like the name of a member of a Chinese mafia operating in the harbor. He warned Ryo to stay away from that man. When Ryo returned home, he found an old intruder in the dojo who was also looking for the other mirror. Ryo lost the fight, but the incident actually gave him enlightenment. He finally understood his father's advice that to defeat a stronger opponent, he must observe their movements, not rely on brute strength. As he got back up, Ryo's movements became more focused. He saw an opening and immediately landed a blow to the old man's stomach. The man seemed to be in pain. Ryo's next attack successfully kicked him, and the old man immediately fled. Hearing the commotion, the dojo's caretaker came and asked what had happened. At that moment, Ryo solidified his resolve to find out the truth behind his father's death. Ryo declared his determination to his family that he must learn about his father's past to understand why this happened. Fuku-san, the family servant, then gave him a letter he had hidden, which was sent to Iwao after his death. The letter was from someone named Yuan Da-ju in Hong Kong. The letter became Ryo's first clue. With unwavering resolve, Ryo decided to go to Hong Kong to find answers. Ryo began the journey that had long been prophesied. One night, Ryo was continually tormented by nightmares about his father Iwao Hazuki's death. In his dream, a cruel man named Landy accused Iwao of killing someone named Yuan Da-ju before finally killing Iwao in front of Ryo's eyes. Ryo woke up shaken, with grief and anger still fresh. One morning, Shenmu went about his days in his village. Like when he delivered medicine to an old grandmother. The grandmother thanked him while saying there was a bottle of red wine for his parents. The grandmother then recited an ancient poem about the prophecy of the dragon and phoenix, which made Shenmu curious about the meaning of the prophecy. At home, Ryo found a letter written in Chinese addressed to his late father. The sender was Yuan Da-ju, the same name mentioned by his father's killer. Ryo was sure this letter was the key to uncovering his father's mysterious past and proving that his father was not a murderer. Armed with the letter, Ryo went to Yokosuka City to start asking if anyone could read its contents because it used ancient characters. Unfortunately, the search was not as easy as he thought. He met Harasaki, who then offered to help him find an expert who could read the letter. Ryo was very grateful for his effort. Meanwhile, a bald old man seemed very angry because Ryo had foiled his plan to get the mirror he was looking for. Towards evening, while passing through the park, Ryo met Yamagishi, an old man and friend of his late father who seemed to spend his time there. Ryo gave him the letter, hoping Yamagishi knew something. Yamagishi then said that Ryo didn't need to look into his father's past and should live his life in peace. Since he hadn't found anyone who could translate the letter, Ryo then remembered what the old man at the ramen restaurant had said. The old man had said that Landy was connected to the underworld around the harbor. Ryo then decided to investigate the Chinese underworld at the harbor himself. He went to see Saijo, an acquaintance, hoping to get information. Saijo then told Ryo to go to a bar called Heartbeats, where information about the underworld could usually be found. His search led him to a rundown bar where he got into a fight with local thugs while gathering information. The bartender said he needed to find a man named Charlie. However, finding Charlie wasn't easy because information about him was very secretive. At that moment, a child was seen crying near Ryo. The child told him that a man named Charlie had made him like this. Ryo finally found a black market broker named Charlie. A fight broke out, but with his martial arts skills, Ryo managed to defeat Charlie's bodyguards. Charlie, seeing this, immediately ran away, causing Ryo to chase after him, but unfortunately, Ryo lost his trail. The next day, Ryo still hadn't found anyone who could translate his letter. Nozomi apologized for not being able to help much. Ryo said it was okay. Nozomi then asked if Ryo had applied to university because she was also looking for a university and hoped to be on the same campus as Ryo. But Ryo seemed thoughtful because he was still focused on finding information about his father's past. Meanwhile, in a bar, Charlie and his henchmen warned that the kid might be connected to their rival, Chen. Charlie then devised a plan to capture Ryo with the help of some tough guys he met at the bar. The next day, Yamagishi was seen paying his respects to the late Iwao. He was worried because Ryo was now searching for information about his father's past. He was reluctant to tell Ryo because it could put his life in danger, but seeing the determined look in Ryo's eyes, Yamagishi decided to help him. At that moment, the two tough guys Ryo had previously defeated approached him, claiming they wanted to help him. Ryo said he was looking for someone named Charlie. The two men said they knew Charlie's whereabouts. Soon, they led Ryo to an abandoned building. Immediately, Ryo was ambushed by several of Charlie's men. But as usual, with his self-defense skills, Ryo managed to beat them one by one. The two tough guys then ran away scared and ran into Yamagishi, who had heard Ryo was fighting. Yamagishi then secretly watched Ryo, who remained insistent that he must know about his father's past, as he was accused of killing someone. Charlie, who looked badly beaten by Ryo, said the person he was looking for was very dangerous. After that, Ryo met Yamagishi in the park. Ryo got advice from his father's acquaintance. Yamagishi initially asked Ryo to stop investigating his father's past, but after seeing Ryo's firm resolve, he instead helped him. Yamagishi told Ryo about a pottery shop owner who was skilled at reading ancient and modern Chinese characters and might be able to translate the letter. Yamagishi also offered to train Ryo in traditional martial arts, which Ryo gladly accepted. With a new clue and guidance from Yamagishi, Ryo's resolve grew stronger. He believed his destiny was tied to this mystery. In Bailu village, Guilin, Shunhua was humming an ancient poem telling of a young man from a distant land in the east who would come across the sea. The young man was described as having a power he was unaware of, a power that could destroy him. Meanwhile, a henchman appeared to report the incident that happened to Charlie. He said Charlie had been beaten badly by a young man. The gangster, known as the Mad Angels, was preparing to find Ryo. His actions attracted the attention of the gang's leader. Meanwhile, Ryo brought the letter containing ancient Chinese writing to an old language expert at a pottery shop, who turned out to be the grandmother of a child he had helped. The letter was a warning from Yuan-da-ju that read, "Beware of those who come. They seek the mirror," and instructions to seek Master Chen if things got worse. The letter also contained a numeric code which turned out to be a phone number. Ryo called the number and mentioned the secret code from the letter. He was directed to warehouse number 8 in the Amihama district. Upon arriving, he immediately got into a fight with local thugs. After being defeated by Ryo, the thug gave him info about the place Ryo was looking for. While entering the building, Ryo was ambushed and taken to meet an old man. The man was named Master Chen, the leader of the underground organization Jufeng Company. Ryo introduced himself and told him what had happened. Master Chen explained that Yuan-da-ju was a facilitator who helped smuggle a valuable mirror from China, most likely done together with Ryo's father, Iwao Hazuki. That mirror was the Dragon Mirror. Master Chen also revealed there was a second mirror, the Phoenix Mirror, which was still missing. The perpetrator of Ryo's father's murder, Landy, was an executive of the very powerful Chinese underground cartel, Qiyu Men, and was suspected of wanting both mirrors, but the whereabouts of the Phoenix Mirror were unknown. Back at the dojo, Ryo searched his father's room for clues about the Phoenix Mirror. This attracted the attention of the dojo caretakers, who saw Ryo get hurt. Afterwards, they asked Ryo what he was doing. Ryo said he was looking for the Phoenix Mirror. Unfortunately, neither of them had ever heard of such a mirror. However, the female caretaker said she had heard that his father had given something to an antique dealer. Ryo immediately went to see that antique dealer. Upon arriving, he was given his family's crest, which had been entrusted to the dealer for safekeeping before his father died, but Ryo was disappointed because it wasn't the mirror Master Chen mentioned. The dealer seemed to know Chen, who was also an antique dealer. On his way back, Ryo felt someone was following him. Realizing this, the man immediately attacked Ryo but soon stopped. Ryo, still confused, asked him, and he explained that this was a test. The man was ordered by Master Chen to be his bodyguard because Landy would surely target him. Ryo then met Mai and Nozomi, who noticed Ryo looked very gloomy. Ryo then asked where girls usually keep mirrors. Mai and Nozomi were surprised by Ryo's question, but Nozomi said she would want a secret room to keep it. Instantly, Ryo thought that his dojo might have a secret room. During a sparring match, the dojo master praised Ryo's significant improvement. Ryo was unaware of how much his strength had grown, but he felt it was still not enough, especially considering what he had been through. While cleaning the wall, Ryo and his friend discovered the Hazuki family seal hidden in the wall. The seal opened a secret compartment where the Phoenix Mirror was hidden. At that moment, Ryo found a photo of his father with a martial arts master, inscribed with the words Bailu Village. Ryo then brought the mirror to Master Chen. Master Chen explained that according to legend, if the two mirrors were united, they would summon a creature that could destroy the world. However, they were immediately attacked by an agent of Chiyu men who tried to seize the mirror. Thanks to the cooperation of Ryo and Gizong, the agent was defeated and fled. Master Chen explained that the Mad Angels were rivals of Ju Feng who collaborated with Chiyu men and paved the way for Landy to enter Japan. He suspected Landy had already left Japan for Hong Kong. Ryo insisted on following Landy to Hong Kong to avenge his father and seek the truth. Although he initially refused because he didn't want to drag Ryo into the criminal world, Master Chen was ultimately impressed by Ryo's iron will. He realized that Ryo's only lead was Yuan Da Ju, and to find him, Ryo would have to dive into the storm of conflict between Ju Feng, the Mad Angels, and Chiyu men. Ryo's dangerous journey to find the truth and become strong had begun. With great seriousness, the old woman sat fixated in front of the calculator, her eyes scanning every detail of the available flights. Hong Kong. Her goal was clear, yet the distance felt so vast, not just geographically, but financially. The figure of 150,000 yen displayed on the screen seemed to mock her. Ryo just fell silent seeing it. Fukuhara then called Ryo and handed over his savings for Ryo's journey. The next day, Ryo got off the bus and was immediately accosted by a man with an overly familiar, brotherly attitude, Goro Mihashi, who appeared like a tornado. Goro, who admired Ryo due to his connection with his late father's Ju Feng company, immediately offered help with an enthusiasm that was almost deafening. Though initially reluctant, Ryo finally stated his need. He needed money, and fast. Not through illegal means as Goro immediately imagined, but through legitimate work. Goro, who claimed to know everyone at Shin-Yokosuka Harbor, promptly took Ryo to a place in the warehouse area called Port Mess Hall. There, through an acquaintance named Mai who surprisingly knew Ryo, Mai told him about a vacancy at Alpha Trading Company. The company's owner, who had already heard Ryo's story, immediately accepted him. His first task, learn how to operate a forklift. The training was brief and unsatisfactory from a man named Mark, who was cold and indifferent. However, Ryo was a quick learner. He soon grasped the basics of the machine and began working. A minor incident occurred when he almost damaged some cargo, making him realize how harsh and noisy this working world was. At the end of the day, he felt tired but satisfied, one step closer to his goal. Goro, always appearing at the right moment, greeted him cheerfully. He then forced Ryo to join him on a tour of the harbor, showing him areas controlled by Yokosuka's most feared gang, the Mad Angels. That name made Ryo's blood boil. He was sure this group was closely linked to his father's death. Goro showed him a secret message board behind a wall, where the unemployed and thugs noted empty warehouses for hangouts. Ryo refused Goro's invitation to join, his mind focused only on how to infiltrate the Mad Angels. Meanwhile, Gizong was warned by his father not to interfere with Ryo's affairs for the sake of their business's security. The next day, as Ryo finished work as usual, Goro met him and brought him a canned drink. Ryo thanked him and asked why Goro was so kind to him. It turned out Goro held a deep admiration for Ryo's determination. In a moment of honesty, Goro told the story of his own father who disappeared and how he lacked the courage to search for him. He saw in Ryo the courage he longed for. Therefore, he would try his hardest to help Ryo. Right then, Ryo asked for his help to find a way to meet the Mad Angels. At that moment, Mark was seen accidentally overhearing their conversation. Upon returning to the dojo, Gizong was seen waiting for Ryo. Without a second thought, he immediately attacked Ryo. They exchanged blows, but then Gizong immediately explained the technique he used and intended to teach it to Ryo. He said he would do the same if he were in Ryo's shoes. However, danger began to loom. Ryo's work in the Mad Angels' territory did not escape their notice. One evening, a group of the gang's members came to the Alpha Trading Warehouse, asking about the new kid who had dared to mess with one of their members, Charlie. Mark, who it turned out had a younger brother who had joined the Mad Angels, tried to protect Ryo by hiding his identity. When the thugs started beating Mark, Ryo did not stand idle. He stepped in and saved Mark, an act that made Mark open up. He admitted he worked at the harbor to find his brother, who was lost in the clutches of the Mad Angels. A new friendship was forged between them. Unfortunately, the danger came to an innocent person. Nozomi, who had accidentally overheard Goro talking about Ryo's intention to confront the Mad Angels, tried to do some investigating on her own. She went to a bar suspected to be frequented by gang members to gather information. It was a fatal mistake. Nozomi disappeared after making a flower delivery for the flower shop where she worked part-time. Ryo's worry peaked when he returned home to the dojo and got news that Nozomi hadn't returned. Before he could act, a motorcycle approached. A member of the Mad Angels delivered a short and threatening message, "Come to warehouse number 17, or Nozomi will be hurt." With a heart pounding with anger and worry, Ryo burst into the dark and gloomy warehouse. There, tied to a chair, sat Nozomi with a pale, terrified face. Before her was the gang's leader, Terry, a tattooed man with a piercing, cruel aura. Terry accused Ryo of being sent by their rival, Master Chen. Ryo firmly denied it, explaining that his enemy was only one, Landy. Terry didn't care. He set a condition for Nozomi's release: Ryo had to kill Master Chen's son, Gizong, as proof that he wasn't allied with them. Nozomi would remain a hostage until the task was completed. Ryo was cornered. His soul was in turmoil. Fulfilling Terry's demand meant betraying his own principles and harming someone who might be innocent. Refusing meant letting Nozomi get hurt. In torturous indecision, the images of his father's face, Goro's support, and Nozomi's trust swirled in his head. Finally, with a shattered heart, he agreed. Under the watchful eyes of Terry and his men, he called Gizong and forced him to meet. In a quiet, open field under the darkening sky, the two young men faced each other. Gizong's expression was full of confusion and unspoken questions. "Quiet," Ryo snapped, cutting off any question that might come from Gizong's mouth. "You and I must fight." With little choice, Gizong took a stance, his face turning serious. The fight began. Ryo mustered all his martial arts skills, but Gizong was tough and agile. In a swift and deadly move, Gizong launched his signature technique, the swallow dive. Ryo tried to evade, but the technique was too powerful. At that moment, they both fell unconscious, lying helpless. Terry was pleased to see it. He declared that Yokosuka was now in his grasp. Goro, who was seen P at the time, noticed the number 17 and realized it was the Mad Angels gang's place. Right then, he saw Nozomi, who appeared to be tied up, and thought Ryo was in big trouble. He rushed to tell Mai, a tough woman with a past as a gang girl. Goro, panicking, initially wanted to call the police, but Mai quickly realized that was a futile idea. Instead, she told Goro to follow her immediately. They rushed to Ryo's workplace, a warehouse in the harbor. There, with the help of Mark, Ryo's more level-headed co-worker, a crazy plan was hatched. They would use a forklift to rescue Nozomi. Although Mai insisted on driving it herself, Mark, with his safety-first principle, took control. With surprising forklift driving skills, Mark crashed into the warehouse where Nozomi was held, plowing through all obstacles. Goro and Mai managed to free the terrified Nozomi in a noisy, chaotic rescue. Meanwhile, the fight between Ryo and Gizong reached its peak. Both were exhausted and bruised, but neither would give up. Suddenly, the Mad Angels leader, who had been observing from a distance, gave the order for Ryo to finish off Gizong immediately. At the critical moment, rescue arrived. The forklift driven by Mark crashed into the fight area, with Goro, Mai, and the freed Nozomi on board. They shouted a warning to Ryo. Seeing Nozomi was safe, Ryo immediately got up, followed by Gizong. The thugs couldn't believe their eyes. It seemed Ryo and Gizong had tricked them by pretending to fight. A major battle erupted. Ryo and Gizong, though their bodies were battered, fought side by side with burning spirit. One by one, the gangsters were defeated until only Terry remained. However, Terry without his lackeys was just a man with no strength. Gizong easily defeated him. Finally, after a long struggle, the remaining Mad Angels members fled, leaving their angry and defeated leader behind. The Mad Angels leader, full of hatred, warned Ryo that his journey was not over. He revealed that a much larger and more dangerous shadow organization, the Chiyu Men, was behind everything, and they would be waiting for Ryo's arrival in Hong Kong. With that threat, Ryo was more determined than ever to continue his journey. His destination was Hong Kong, to hunt down Landy, the man responsible for his father's death and the theft of his family's mysterious mirror. Gizong, who now respected Ryo, decided to help him. He persuaded his influential father, Master Chen, to arrange Ryo's trip to Hong Kong. Master Chen agreed, not only out of respect for Ryo's determination but also due to his own interest in monitoring the Chiyu Men's activities. A few days later, at Shin-Yokosuka Harbor, the time for farewells came. Ryo thanked all his friends who had helped him through this ordeal. Goro and Mai announced the surprising news of their wedding plans, a bond strengthened by their shared dangerous experience. Mark gave a warm goodbye, while Nozomi, with tears in her eyes, gave Ryo a lucky charm she had specially prayed over for his safety. Their hopes and prayers went with Ryo. As Ryo prepared to depart, Master Chen and Gizong came to say goodbye. But then, Chai acted up again, intending to harm Chen. Gizong immediately sprang into action to protect his father, resulting in his leg being injured by a metal bar. Ryo then immediately attacked Chai, kicking him so hard he was sent flying into the sea. At that moment, Gizong insisted on accompanying Ryo to Hong Kong, assuring him he would be a valuable ally. However, Master Chen wisely restrained his son, stating that the wound on his leg needed to heal and that he still had room to grow by his father's side. Gizong finally accepted, understanding that his path, for now, was still in Yokosuka. Their parting was filled with respect and mutual gratitude, a bond of friendship forged on the battlefield. The Hong Kong sky greeted his arrival with glittering lights and a dense sea of skyscrapers. The sound of car horns, engine roars, and the ceaseless movement of the crowd created a symphony of characteristic chaos. This is Hong Kong, he thought, a metropolis living with its own fast and merciless breath. Upon arriving, Ryo was almost run over by a woman riding a sports motorcycle. The woman said that as a newly arrived foreigner, he should be more careful, especially since there were many pickpockets here. Not long after, the woman immediately accelerated and left Ryo behind. Shortly after, a child ran towards Ryo saying he was being chased by thugs. Without suspicion, Ryo immediately intended to help the child, but unfortunately, it turned out the child was part of a pickpocket gang. After taking Ryo's backpack, they quickly ran off, leaving Ryo slightly bewildered. Unfortunately, while chasing them, Ryo lost their trail. With the little Cantonese he knew, he reported the loss to the police. However, their response was cold and bureaucratic. They asked him to come back after finding a place to stay, an impossibility for him at that moment. The search for lodging became a struggle in itself. Every guest house rejected him, some were full, some just shut the door. He was lost in the unforgiving labyrinth of the city. His only consolation was that his Phoenix mirror was still safe, but the challenges felt increasingly immense. While walking through a park, Ryo's attention was drawn to an old man practicing Tai Chi. The old man then said to Ryo that he knew Ryo was a martial artist. But Ryo just said he was merely passing through and looking for someone. The old man answered wisely, that sometimes the best way to find someone is to stop looking for them. Instead of answering, the old man challenged him to a practice spar. Initially, Ryo hesitated, thinking Tai Chi wasn't for fighting, but he immediately engaged the old man in a spar. Ryo immediately took a stance and directed his punches and kicks towards the old man. His movements were sharp and skilled, impressing the old man. However, the old man managed to defeat Ryo. Ryo admitted defeat in this spar. At that moment, the letter he was carrying fell from his pocket. The old man returned it, and Ryo used the opportunity to ask for directions to Yantin Apartments. Brief directions were given before the old man became captivated once more by the fighting style he had just witnessed. With the new directions, he finally arrived at Yantin Apartments. However, the welcome was not a warm one. A middle-aged woman greeted him with anger, mistaking him for another troublemaker trying to evict her from her home. After explaining he wasn't a threat but had come to find Li Xiaotao, the woman told him that Master Tao no longer lived there. She told Ryo to go to the Man Mo Temple. Arriving at the Man Mo Temple, filled with the scent of incense and a solemn atmosphere, Ryo asked a worshipper, but only got a shake of the head. A monk then approached him. Full of hope, Ryo showed his letter of introduction from Yao and Chen. The monk acknowledged the letter but said it wasn't enough to meet Master Tao. He advised him not to rush, everything would happen in its own time. Ryo was still confused by the monk's answer when he again met the old Tai Chi master. The old man asked if he had found the person he was looking for. The answer was no. The old man, who turned out to be named Xu Ying, spoke about desires and prayers. He saw restlessness and obsession in Ryo's eyes. Xu Ying wisely said that the harder one searches, the blinder they become to what is right in front of them. Upon learning that Ryo was searching for Master Li Xiaotao, Xu Ying finally offered a clue, but with one condition: he had to master a Tai Chi technique. Xu Ying demonstrated the iron palm, a technique that focuses full power through the arm and leg into a single strike. The challenge was to train the technique by striking a tree until the ground around it was covered with fallen leaves. Only then would the clue be given. Ryo trained diligently, though he struggled at first. On another occasion, Wang, the boy he had tried to help before, was grumbling because the spoils from robbing Ryo turned out to be worthless. Joy, who saw this, asked what happened. Wang then told her that he and his friends had picked the wrong person's pocket. He was annoyed at wasting his energy and time. Towards evening, Ryo took the initiative to look for cheap lodging. As he passed by, he was called over by two men who claimed they wanted to help him. However, it seemed they just wanted to start trouble with Ryo. Just as a fight was about to break out, Joy arrived and saved him from another group of thugs trying to extort him. After seeing his fighting skills, Joy felt sympathy. She realized Ryo was a martial artist. Joy asked Ryo what had happened. Ryo told her about the events that had befallen him at the harbor. Joy then laughed and said Ryo had already met the old man. Ryo then asked Joy to take him to meet Wang, but she told him that Wang was just an orphan struggling to survive in this harsh city where everyone only thought of themselves, especially with Hong Kong's impending handover to China. Joy finally helped him find cheap lodging. The next day, Ryo returned to train. Xu Ying praised him and explained the philosophy behind Tai Chi, a union of softness and strength. Ryo asked if a martial art must be able to attack. Xu Ying answered that its true purpose wasn't to injure, but for something higher. At that moment, Ryo remembered the important item in his backpack. Ryo then asked Joy for help finding Wang. Joy refused, worried Ryo would report them to the police to protect Wang, but Joy finally told him their location after being sure Ryo wouldn't hurt them. Ryo found Wang and his friends. A brief chase ensued. Even Wang's friends tried to attack Ryo, but he easily defeated them. Ryo managed to get his bag back without hurting anyone. After that, Ryo was seen training again in the park. This time, he succeeded in making the leaves fall. This action was observed by Xu Ying. Xu Ying approached Ryo and praised him. He explained that Ryo's perseverance and training every day reflected one of the philosophies of martial arts. Xu Ying then said that Master Li Xiaotao would soon meet him. At the Man Mo Temple, Ryo immediately wanted to meet Master Li Xiaotao. Ryo was shocked. The woman in front of him was the master he had been searching for. Li Xiaotao then questioned his motives. Was hunting his father's killer truly his deceased father's wish? She warned Ryo that the path he was on now would only lead him astray. His mind was filled with doubt and wonder. He found it hard to believe that the woman before him was the legendary Master Li Xiaotao, the person he had been searching for. Without clear proof, his ego secretly whispered that he could surely defeat her in a fight, though he immediately dismissed the thought, reasoning that it was improper to fight a woman. Detecting the hidden doubt and arrogance within Ryo, Master Tao offered a challenge to prove her identity. Before Ryo could even prepare himself, the woman moved with incomprehensible speed. Ryo unleashed his signature technique, but Tao effortlessly evaded. Her movements were like lightning, her fingers pressed a pressure point on Ryo's body with absolute precision. Master Tao stood over him, calmly explaining that the strike could easily disable an opponent. If her intent had been to kill, Ryo would already be a corpse. She said he was lucky, then coldly told him to return to Japan because she could not help him. A young disciple of Master Tao, Fang Mei, who witnessed the event, was scolded and told to get back to work. Ryo, still silent and stunned, was approached by a man named Chen. Chen read Ryo's shattered and astonished expression. He realized that Ryo had underestimated Tao based on her outward appearance and had doubted her strength. Chen then revealed that he knew Ryo's purpose for coming was to seek help in finding Yuan Daju. Though rejected, Chen offered a clue. He suggested Ryo go to the Guang martial arts school to learn about the Four Wood, a concept of virtue in martial arts. Chen philosophized that the shortest path to a goal is not a straight line and that Ryo had been blinded by his burning desire. He offered hope that with time, the master might change her mind. Ryo, though confused, decided to try the suggestion. When he asked why Chen was helping him, Chen vaguely replied that it wasn't for Ryo's sake. Ryo arrived at the Guang martial arts school. He was greeted warily by the students there until a middle-aged man, Master Joshan Xuan, appeared and allowed him to enter. Respectfully, Ryo introduced himself as Japanese and stated his intention to learn Wood, as suggested, to understand Master Li Xiao Tao's teachings. Hearing Master Tao's name, Joshan seemed to understand, but his face was immediately clouded by a shadow of deep regret. He confessed that he was unworthy of speaking about Wood. His reason was that he had once ruined the life of a disciple. Ryo left empty-handed and more confused than ever. The next day in Aberdeen, Ryo met Joy again. Joy complimented his improving Cantonese skills. Ryo asked about expert martial artists, but Joy didn't know any. However, Joy provided information about a street performer at the Golden Shopping Mall who was said to have easily defeated a group of thugs. Hearing this, Ryo immediately excused himself and hurried to the mentioned location. At the Golden Shopping Mall, Ryo found a street performer named Zonquin who immediately told him to go buy a beer. The man looked like a vagrant, but Ryo bought him the beer anyway. Satisfied after drinking the beer, Zonquin spontaneously said he was showing off his karate skills by breaking a stone. He then told Ryo to demonstrate his martial arts ability by breaking a stone. This instantly became a crowd puller, and people started giving them money. Zonquin, seeing this, tried to recruit Ryo as a partner in his performance. Ryo politely declined and explained that he was looking for someone to teach him about Wood. Hearing the word Wood, Zonquin's attitude changed. In a grim and regretful tone, he said the exact same thing as Master Joshan, that he was unworthy of talking about Wood. He then gave Ryo a share of the performance money and quickly left. Meanwhile, Joy was riding her motorcycle when suddenly a knife was thrown, embedding itself nearby and startling her. A man then approached and asked where the Japanese man he was looking for was. Joy told the man he could find him at the mall, as she had mentioned Ryo was searching for a martial arts master. Hearing this, the man immediately left to find Ryo. Elsewhere, Ryo went back to see Master Joshan. Joshan was surprised to hear Ryo had met Zonquin. Master Joshan then recounted the past. Zonquin was a former, highly talented disciple at the Guang school. But one day he broke the rules and was immediately expelled. Master Joshan felt he had failed as a teacher, which was why he felt unworthy to teach Ryo the Wood he sought. The next day, as Ryo intended to meet Zonquin, he was suddenly surrounded by a group of thugs asking about his connection to Zonquin. They were local gangsters called the Yellowheads, an underground gang, and were demanding protection money that Zonquin had refused to pay. Ryo refused to tell them Zonquin's whereabouts, which angered them. As they were about to attack Ryo, Zonquin suddenly appeared and skillfully distracted the thugs. Instead of fighting, Zonquin chose to flee with Ryo, avoiding an unnecessary confrontation. After successfully escaping, Ryo and Zonquin rested. Zonquin explained who the Yellowheads were and admitted he disliked trouble and wanted to live his life peacefully. Ryo returned to his guest house, but the caretaker said he had to pay rent even if he was Joy's friend. Not long after, Joy called Ryo and asked him to get food. Joy asked if Ryo had found what he was looking for. Ryo simply said he had gotten into a fight with gangsters called the Yellowheads that day. Joy was surprised to hear this and said Ryo must be pretty tough to have survived. At that moment, Ryo remembered the words of Chen and Joshan. He realized that Zonquin was intentionally hiding his true strength and refusing to use his martial arts for show or violence, even while living as a street performer. Ryo understood that this was the application of one of the Wood. Meanwhile, the Yellowheads gangsters found Zonquin again, intending to get revenge. Zonquin managed to avoid all the gangsters' attacks until their leader stepped in to handle things himself. Just then, Ryo arrived and shouted to stop the fight. Seeing this, the gangsters left them alone. Ryo conveyed his realization to Zonquin, convincing him that he knew the real reason Zonquin refused to fight was because he still held on to Master Joshan's teachings. Zonquin was shocked and touched. Shortly after, the Yellowheads found them again, but this time Ryo stood in front of Zonquin and asked him not to fight, to remain true to his path. The gang leader, after seeing Ryo's stance, decided to retreat for the time being with a warning that they would meet again. After this event, Zonquin gave a sealed letter to Ryo and asked him to deliver it to Master Joshan. Back at the Guang Martial Arts School, Ryo delivered Zonquin's letter to Master Joshan. Emotionally, Joshan read it. The letter contained Zonquin's admission that although he had broken the oath of Jia, he had never abandoned the martial path. His art still flowed within him like a music lover who never stops humming. Joshan explained the meaning of Jia to Ryo, guarding the heart from arrogance, not using strength recklessly, or showing off techniques. He finally admitted that Zonquin's failure was also his failure as a teacher, which was why he felt unworthy to teach Wood. Even after this reconciliation, Joshan held his ground about not helping Ryo, though he kept his other reasons to himself. Ryo, now understanding the meaning of Jia, remained determined not to give up. He went back to see Master Li Xiao Tao at her temple. This time, Xuying took him to a room inside the temple. She explained that it was her room and told Ryo to stay there from that day on. She firmly stated that she still did not intend to help Ryo in his quest. However, because she respected Master Chen who had sent Ryo, she could not simply ignore him. As a small sign of acceptance, she finally introduced her real name, Xuying Hong. Ryo, feeling he had taken a significant step forward, sincerely thanked her, now calling her Master Xuying. Her disciple, Fang Mei, cheered happily because her intuition about cleaning the master's room had been correct. Though his future was still uncertain, Ryo now had a place to start and a new understanding that his journey required deeper virtue, not just physical strength. The journey to understand the next Wood, aspiration, awaited him. Ryo Hazuki was troubled by his recurring dream again. He then met a girl named Fang Mei Xun, who introduced herself as Xuying's assistant. Fang Mei relayed a message that Ryo was to meet Xuying in the Man Mo Temple Library. Upon arriving at the library, Xuying gave Ryo the task of sun-drying the temple's rare books. Impatient, Ryo expressed his desire to find Yuan Da Ju. Xuying refused to help him, stating that this task was Ryo's way of repaying his debt to her. Ryo decided to go into the city to look for a martial arts master to teach him Wood. Preoccupied with his thoughts, he almost crashed into an old grandmother who immediately scolded him. Ryo was blamed for almost damaging her merchandise. The old woman took Ryo to a tea shop she frequented. There, she handed a set of tea cups to the shop attendant. Shortly after, the attendant gave Ryo free tea for helping the old woman. Meanwhile, Joy was walking through the city. From behind, a hand reached for her wallet, but Joy reacted instantly. It was Wang. She asked Wang if he had seen Ryo. Wang said he would help her look for him. Not long after, they met Ryo. Joy asked Ryo where he was staying now. Ryo explained that someone had given him a temporary place to stay, which confused Joy. Ryo stated that he was looking for a martial arts master to learn Wood. Ryo's search took him to Pigeon Park, where he was challenged to a fight by a woman. He refused, but the woman complimented his ability. Ryo then asked her about Wood but didn't get an answer. Elsewhere, Xuying and Fang Mei saved 2 children from some thugs. Fang Mei highly praised Xuying, who easily drove the thugs away. As she approached the children, Xuying remembered her own past and then told Fang Mei to hurry back to the temple. Meanwhile, Ryo, Wang, and Joy were relaxing at a food stall. A commotion broke out outside, and Ryo, as usual, was about to break up the fight between 2 men. But Joy stopped him. She said this was common because the area was soon to be redeveloped, and the poor vendors would have to leave. People around seemed indifferent. Remembering his unfinished task, Ryo hurried back to the temple. Because he was late finishing his task, Ryo was scolded by Fang Mei, who was very annoyed that Ryo seemed to be slacking off. Feeling annoyed, she left Ryo. Xuying, seeing this, tried to calm Fang Mei and advised Ryo that he was too fixated on his goal and wasn't paying enough attention to his surroundings. Xuying also asked Ryo his deep reason for practicing martial arts. Meanwhile, Wang was still curious why Joy was so nice to Ryo, which made Joy a little embarrassed. Just then, they overheard a restaurant waiter saying that the thugs' eviction efforts would be difficult because a martial arts master living there was fighting them. Hearing this, Joy and Wang immediately called for Ryo. Thanks to the information from Wang and Joy, Ryo went to Yantin Apartments, the residence of a martial arts master named Gai Shang. There, Ryo defended an old woman from the land sharks. It turned out the old woman was Gai Shang herself. Gai Sheng explained that Ryo's action of defending the weak without hesitation was the embodiment of one of the principles of Wood, Yi. Ryo finally understood the lesson Xuying had intended for him. Back at the Manmo temple, Ryo apologized to Fangmei. Fangmei then gave an important clue. There was a book called Wulanshu in the library that had the name Yuanda-ju on its cover. Ryo finally found a lead in his search. Ryo found the book Fangmei mentioned. While examining it, a piece of paper fell out, which turned out to be a code. When returning to his room to rest, Ryo accidentally saw Xu Ying looking at a photograph and crying. The next day, Fangmei asked Ryo if he had found what he was looking for. Ryo showed her the coded paper he found, but Fangmei didn't understand it either. She suggested Ryo ask at the tea shop. There, Ryo was told to find Gai Shang. The shop attendant said this was a Chawan sign, and Gai Shang could help him. Gai Shang was surprised to see Ryo at her residence. Ryo gave her the coded paper, which Gai Shang could read. Gai Shang explained that it was a code used among masters within a community. Gai Shang then taught Ryo how to arrange the teacups, which signified that he was an ally of Yuanda-ju. After that, Ryo tried using the Chawan sign in public. Sure enough, when Ryo asked for the bill, the waiter gave him a note saying someone wanted to meet him that night in the park. That night, Ryo went to Manmo Park, but without realizing it, someone hit him from behind, causing him to fall unconscious. The next morning, he woke up in his room, still feeling sore. Fangmei said that Master Xu Ying was worried because he hadn't been seen since the day before. Ryo then asked who Zimin was. Hearing that name, Fangmei's expression became sad. She then told the story of Master Xu Ying's past. She was an orphan and had a brother named Zimin, but now he was missing. Fangmei then left Ryo, saying she would handle the day's tasks. Next, Ryo was seen at a tea stall arranging his Chawan sign again. A man, who turned out to be a former martial artist, corrected Ryo's mistake in using the Chawan sign. Ryo asked if the man was a martial artist and knew about Wood. The man said he used to be a martial artist, but due to an injury to his hand, he was now retired. The man then took Ryo to his place, which turned out to be a barber shop where he worked. He tested Ryo by pointing a sharp razor at his throat. The man simply said Ryo had good reflexes, but unfortunately, he couldn't teach him Wood because Ryo still lacked something. Ryo was confused but didn't give up. Later at a restaurant, Ryo tried the correct Chawan sign. He was then contacted by a waiter who said there was a phone call for him. But when he answered, there was no response. Slightly annoyed, Ryo returned to his table and found a note inviting him to meet that night at the Dujiang Diner. Afterwards, Ryo met a man who turned out to be a servant of Yuanda-ju. Before they could explain, they were attacked by a group of gangsters targeting the man. The man was taken forcibly by the gangsters, but Ryo didn't stand idly by and fought them off. One of the gangsters recognized Ryo. But before a full fight could break out, the gangsters' underlings suddenly fainted one by one. The gang leader, seeing this, immediately fled. After the situation calmed down, the man asked Ryo how he knew Yuenda's name. Ryo told his story, and the man then suggested Ryo meet Ren, the leader of the Heaven Gang. With the clue he got, Ryo headed to Ren's hideout. But upon arrival, the gangsters immediately attacked him. Ryo, trained for such situations, easily defeated Ren's lackeys. But just as he was about to be taken to Ren, he was hit from behind and knocked unconscious. Later, when he woke up, Ryo was at Wang's place. He asked Wang to help him meet Ren. Wang then gave him a matchbox and instructions on how to find Ren. Afterwards, Ryo returned to the location Wang mentioned. This time, following Wang's instructions, he successfully got in and met Ren. Ren immediately tested Ryo's toughness by pulling a knife on him. He was impressed by Ryo's toughness and agreed to help him. Soon after, Ren took Ryo to infiltrate a place. A transaction between gangsters was taking place there. Ryo asked what was happening, but Ren, who had been beside him, disappeared. Suddenly, the lights went out. Panic ensued. When the lights came back on, the gangsters were shocked to find the transaction money missing. Ryo, who was about to leave, accidentally attracted the gangsters' attention, and they attacked him, but they had clearly picked the wrong foe. Meanwhile, Ren, who was running away enjoying the stolen money, was suddenly chased by Ryo, who had managed to escape from the gangsters. A chase ensued, and Ryo finally caught up with Ren, though with some difficulty. Ren asked what Ryo's real purpose was in searching for Yuanda-ju. Ryo simply said he was looking for his father's killer. Ren, intrigued, agreed to help Ryo because his intuition told him he could make a lot of money. Just then, Ryo remembered something and hurried to Zanyu barber shop. Back at the barber shop, Ryo had understood the philosophical lesson about Dan. Martial arts serve to preserve life, not destroy it. Once you've allowed your emotions to control your fist, you've stepped down the wrong path. Ryo then met Xu Ying inside the temple. Even though he had learned about Wood, Ryo remained fixed on his goal of revenge. He decided to leave to search for the truth about his father's death, leaving Xu Ying, who looked worried he would take the wrong path. In a peaceful village, a father prepared to leave very early in the morning. His daughter offered to make breakfast, but the father declined. He insisted that his next task was extremely important and that he might not return for some time. Early in the morning, Ryo began to leave the temple. Wang called out to Ryo to meet Ren. Ren reminded him that Yuan Daju was a legendary figure in the underworld, but Ryo had a letter as proof. Ren then offered help through a contact named Yang, who had once worked for Yuan Daju. They went to Kowloon to find Yang. Initially, Yang was hesitant, but after Ryo showed the letter for Iwao Hazuki, he agreed to arrange a meeting on the condition that they deliver a password to a man dressed in black. However, Ren grew suspicious because the man signaled to others. Trusting his instincts, Ren decided to stand guard while Ryo went to meet Yuanda. Ryo arrived in a dark room and called out for Yuanda. But the person who approached him was not Yuanda. The large, fat man had actually set a trap for Ryo. The man turned out to be the leader of the Yellowhead gang. A commotion broke out when Ren attacked some gangsters. They worked together to fight the large man, but unfortunately, with a single punch, he overpowered them. Ryo and Ren were captured by the Yellowhead's gang. They were taken to the Yellowhead's headquarters, a criminal organization led by the large man named Don Yu. Ren explained the group's origins. They were formerly just casino guards who eventually took control of Hong Kong. Ryo and Ren briefly argued due to the dangerous situation, but ultimately worked together to escape. Don Yu ordered his subordinates to find Yuan Daju, hoping that by capturing him, the Yellowheads could affiliate with the Chiyu men and expand their power. Meanwhile, Ryo mentioned Landy as his main target. Ren was shocked because Landy was a major figure in the Chiyu men, far more dangerous than the Yellowheads. After successfully escaping, Ryo and Ren tracked clues to people like Yang and Huang the wiretapper. From an audio recording, they identified a distinctive trait of Yuan, an eccentric Yellowheads member who kept birds. They tailed Yuan to find out Yuan Dazu's location. During their investigation, they found Shuqin Zhang, one of Yuan Dazu's subordinates, who had been captured by the Yellowheads. After rescuing her, Shuqin informed them that Yuan Daju was being held captive in the Ghost Hall building. Ryo and Ren immediately headed there, aided by Ren's friends. They finally managed to find Yuan Daju. However, before they could secure his safety, Don Yu and his men arrived to capture them. The situation grew critical until Xu Ying appeared. Just as a major fight was about to break out, Xu Ying faced a group of dangerous men. They wanted to remove anyone who stood in their way, including Xu Ying. A fierce fight broke out, but Xu Ying easily defeated Don Yu's men. She even overpowered Don Yu himself, who became reluctant to continue the fight. Don Yu was then reminded that his target was to take Yuan Daju. Having succeeded, he then left Xu Ying and Ryo, who lay unconscious. After the situation calmed down, the injured Ryo was taken to a church, which turned out to be the place where he had grown up with his elder brother, Ziming. As he regained consciousness, Ryo realized that Xu Ying was the one who had been secretly helping him all along. She warned him not to be consumed by the path of revenge like his brother, Ziming, had been. Xu Ying then taught him the counter-elbow assault technique, a key move of Bajikan, and emphasized the importance of inner calm and mental clarity to avoid being lost to a dark path. Meanwhile, Don Yu and the Yellowheads were troubled by Xu Ying's presence. They speculated about her true identity but remained focused on guarding their prisoner, Yuan Daju. They worried that Ryo and Ren would try to rescue him, especially if Xu Ying interfered again. Wang and Joy arrived at the place where Ren was staying. Ren informed them that Yuan Daju was being held at the Yellowheads headquarters. With Ren and Joy's help, Ryo looked for a way into the building. Shuqin suggested meeting someone familiar with the area. Upon arriving in a dark room, a martial arts master who knew Ryo's father, Iwao Hazuki, tested him. He had to train in complete darkness, relying only on his sensitivity and mental clarity. The master reminded Ryo that he must understand the true purpose of martial arts, not just pursue revenge. Ryo initially struggled to fight in the darkness, but after receiving advice, he began to focus and could sense the direction of the master's attacks. Afterwards, the master praised Ryo's natural talent. When Ryo revealed that his father was dead, the master suggested there was one way he might be able to save Yuan Daju. The master suggested participating in an illegal street fighting tournament organized by the Yellowheads. This way, Ryo could attract the attention of Yuan Daohuo, an important figure who could grant access to the headquarters. Ryo fought in the tournament with all his skill and easily won his matches. Meanwhile, Joy saw that Ren seemed confused because Ryo had told him not to get involved further in his affairs. Ren was still doubtful they could survive against such a large organization. Joy then said that perhaps they should return to their life on the streets, as fighting a large organization was impossible. Meanwhile, Ryo's victory finally attracted the attention of Yuan Daohuo, who requested to meet him somewhere. At that moment, Wang told Joy that they had to help Ryo. He was annoyed with Joy for being afraid to confront the Yellowheads. Ryo met Yuan Dao at the promised place. Yuan Dao ordered Ryo to defeat a fighter before he would grant access to the Yellowhead's place. Ryo easily defeated the fighter. Ryo was then instructed to meet Yuan Dao again the next day at a specified location. Meanwhile, Ren was annoyed with Ryo for not valuing him. Unbeknownst to them, their meeting was being watched by Yellowhead's members. Meanwhile, Dong Yu was informed that Landy would soon arrive to pick up Yuan Daju. They grew increasingly confident about dominating Hong Kong with the support of the Chi Yu men. Elsewhere, Wang, who happened to be walking through the city, ran into his old gang. They tried to pressure Wang into pickpocketing again. Meanwhile, a Yellowheads member was seen giving instructions to a man in a black suit. Wang accidentally overheard the Yellowheads' plans regarding the handover of Yuan Daju and that Ren was also under surveillance. This led to Wang being chased, but he managed to escape and warn Joy. Ryo and Ren finally infiltrated the Yellowheads building using a risky method. They successfully pressured Yuan Dao into revealing the location of the prisoner holding room on the 17th floor. However, their infiltration was soon detected, and Dong Yu was waiting for them. Terrified, Wang ran to find Joy and ask for help. The two of them were being chased by the dangerous group known as the Yellowheads. Wang explained that he had overheard a secret conversation. Ryo and Ren were under close surveillance by the Yellowheads, who knew their every move. While trying to escape, they were almost caught, but Wang was determined to help Ryo and Ren even though Joy warned that fighting the group was suicidal. Wang revealed his feelings. He hated his life as a street thief, feeling he had no choices since childhood, having no parents. But meeting Ryo made him realize the future could change. Therefore, he vowed to help Ryo even if it meant taking risks. Meanwhile, Ryo and Ren continued to face Dong Yu's men, who chased them and even used chainsaws, but they still managed to escape. Joy went straight to the entrance of the Yellowheads' headquarters. The guards blocked her, and she claimed to be the daughter of Chun from the White Tie group, though Wang knew this disguise was dangerous due to a history of betrayal between the Yellowheads and White Tie. Joy said she would buy time while Wang helped Ryo. Joy was eventually captured and locked in a basement room. Wang tried to sneak in until he finally encountered Yuan Daju, the important figure Ryo was actually searching for. Wang tried to get him out, but the Yellowheads were also hunting for them. Using his wits, Wang managed to trick the guards and escape with Ju. Meanwhile, Joy was rescued by Ryo and Ren after a fierce battle. Ryo demonstrated his resolve by practicing the teachings of Wood, Gan, Jia, Yi, and Dan, as principles of martial arts and life. They ultimately won the fight and took Joy away. However, the pursuit continued. Wang and Yuan Daju remained the primary targets. Although they were almost caught, they managed to escape, but unfortunately, Dong Yu arrived and stopped them. Meanwhile, Ryo forced one of Dong Yu's men to reveal Wang's whereabouts. After a little persuasion, the man said his boss had taken Wang and Yuan Da to the rooftop of the building. On the rooftop, it was revealed that Landy, Ryo's great enemy, was involved in the Yellowheads' plan. Filled with anger, Ryo finally encountered Landy again. Ryo and his friends faced a critical situation when Wang was taken hostage. Dong Yu declared that from that day on, he worked under Landy, and that the entire city would soon kneel at his feet. Ryo saw the figure, and realized, that must be Landy. Landy recognized Ryo as the Hazuki boy. Consumed by vengeful rage, Ryo immediately attacked Landy, but all his attacks failed to land. It was Ryo who was hit by Landy's punch. At that moment, Yuan Da shouted that he would comply with Landy's demands. He simply said that what Landy sought was in Bailu village. Immediately, Landy ordered Wang's release and left. Dong Yu was furious that his grand plan had fallen apart. He punched Ryo and Ren, who tried to save Wang. In the chaos, Ren warned Ryo not to be blinded by his obsession with revenge. Ryo began to realize, he must press forward for his goal without losing his composure. The fight continued. Ryo remembered his father's teachings about martial arts, that the mind must be as clear as water, free from distraction. He gathered his focus and successfully executed a high-level technique that surprised his enemy. In his mirror-like calm, he was able to defeat his opponent. Afterwards, at Ren's hideout, a shocking truth was revealed. Lan Dai's real name was Longsun Zhao, and he had killed Iwao Hazuki because he believed Iwao had killed his own father, Sunming Zhao. However, the full truth was still unclear. Ren then asked about the Phoenix mirror that Ryo carried. The mirror originally belonged to Sunming Zhao. The Phoenix mirror was paired with the Dragon mirror. When combined, they became a key to a hidden treasure intended to restore the Qing dynasty. This discovery made Ren happy. Ryo was advised to go to Guilin, a place where Iwao and Sunming Zhao had once trained together, and also the origin of the Phantom River stone used to create the mirrors. There, he would likely find answers about his father's death. Ryo was determined to continue his journey. He said goodbye to his friends, Ren, Fangmei, and Xu. Before his departure, Xu gave him something, urging him not to become a slave to anger like her brother had long ago. Afterwards, everyone watched Ryo depart, his presence having had a positive impact on his friends. Ryo then crossed the sea towards Guilin. During his journey, he rescued a girl named Shunhua who was trying to retrieve her livestock carried away by a river current. Afterwards, memories of his father resurfaced. When he awoke, Ryo was greeted by the girl he had helped. Upon learning this was Bailu village, he hurried outside. There, he saw a large pink tree. Shunhua showed him the Shenmu tree, the flower tree that was the origin of her name. When they entered Shunhua's house, they found a diagram that matched the Phoenix mirror Ryo carried. Shunhua explained her village's legend. The mirrors were once made by order of the emperor, but they caused bloodshed due to their power. Shunhua's father might have known more, but when they entered a mysterious room, they found only a letter he left behind. In the letter, her father wrote that he had completed the Phoenix mirror, and that Shunhua must now entrust herself to the bearer of the Phoenix to undergo a trial. He also left the family heirloom, the Sword of Seven Stars, for Shunhua. Finally, Shunhua recited an ancient prophecy: a youth from the east would appear, possessing great power that could either destroy or realize his dreams. She and Shunhua would tread a long road together, following a destiny written long ago. The long tale had officially begun, the battle of the dragon and phoenix, the darkness swallowing the sky, and a gleam of morning starlight that would guide them toward the truth.